Some people claim that every human deserves human rights, and there are many people that agree on what human rights are. There are certain laws which state what human rights are, and there are cases of an infringement on human rights, such as torture and other quite atrocious things against someone's human rights. Even prisoners have the human right to having warmth, food, recreational activities, etc. But there's a certain line that doesn't seem to exist. So a prisoner who has just beaten someone up, who has had to go to prison for 6 months, could claim that it's against their human rights to be sent to prison, or it's against their human rights to be within a certain group of people. And for example, if someone commits a hate crime, or if they are part of a gang that takes part in hate crimes such as the Ku Klux Klan or a neo-Nazi, and they have a big swastika on the side of their face, they can claim it's against their human rights to be placed in a prison where they are within the general population of that prison, where there are gangs or even just other inmates that are of other ethnic minorities or ethnic origins. As a result, that person has their life put at risk being placed in this prison. So they can argue it's against their human rights to be imprisoned. Other people will argue it's against society, the people's human rights in society, to have him running about committing crime. So it might be a simple case of transferring him to a prison where his life won't be at risk, but again removing his freedoms because he needs to be removed from society for the safety of society. You also get people that enter a country illegally and they say they can't be deported because it would be an infringement of their human rights. If they go back to their own country, they would be arrested and potentially tortured, which is an infringement of human rights. And as a result, they are allowed to walk free without punishment in the country they have entered illegally, or they entered legally and then committed the crimes they have done. They may even argue that their country of origin, or where they recently moved from or emigrated from, is currently in a state of either civil war or simply it's not very friendly over there. As a result, if they moved there, they could potentially be at risk. As a result, infringement of human rights. There's the Islamic preacher. I'll just scroll to the top here. The Islamic preacher, Dr. Zakir Naik, was excluded from the UK, and the High Court states that it was lawful. There have been arguments that it is against his human rights because it is a breach of the rights of freedom of speech. The problem is a lot of people have different opinions on this. Freedom of speech means you are allowed to give your opinion, you are allowed to state your view, and it is unfair to be dismissed and your words being disregarded completely before being allowed the opportunity to say anything. The problem is, freedom of speech and freedom to hate are completely different things. This isn't necessarily talking about this preacher, but about people in general. I may argue freedom of speech, I can call you any name under the sun, I can be racial, I can be hateful, I can instigate threats of violence, so on and so forth. But you can't complain because I have the freedom of speech. There is a line. It might be a blurry line, it may be a wobbly line, but there is a line. And I genuinely believe that freedom of speech is used as an excuse by a lot of people. There was one case where a child in America in a non-uniform school wore a t-shirt that said multiple things along the lines of a certain type of behaviour is evil and those that commit it are abominations, that a certain race are evil, people belonging to a certain religion are evil, so on and so forth. And they were suspended or expelled, I can't remember which, but told to remove the t-shirt. The family wanted to sue on grounds of freedom of speech because they are trying to prevent him from speaking what he wants to say. Their lawyer said no, fight on the grounds of religious freedom, because their religion does state all of these things. The problem is, if I were to invent a religion right now saying that if someone has a haircut that isn't to your tastes, you're allowed to punch them in the back of the head until they lose consciousness or die. I see someone that has lines shaped on the side of their head, which is something that I'm not particularly fond of, so then I beat them into submission. They end up passing out, losing consciousness or dying. I can then say, freedom of religion, my religion says that I can do this. How far will it be allowed to go before everyone can say, you know what, that is going too far? You will always have people that will argue on the side of human rights, and me personally, I'm all for human rights, because everybody deserves the same rights as everyone else. Torture is, like, even in cases where someone has committed horrendous crimes, or if it's a case of someone has information that is necessary to save lives or to prevent other lives being at risk, you torture someone enough, they will say, well, they will sing like a bird eventually, but they will say what you want to hear. You can never be sure if information gained under torture is said because it is the truth and you have broken them, or if it's just their attempt at stopping you from continuing with the process. So I do agree with human rights. I disagree with people using human rights as an excuse and a defence when it is unnecessary, or even manipulating it to defend those that are preventing others from having their human rights. Freedom of speech is something I also agree with, because without it, we are in dictatorships. If you look at places such as North Korea, many areas of the Middle East, many areas of Africa, you will notice that there are places where freedom of speech doesn't exist. If you were to say, hypothetically, I think that this is wrong because of A, B and C, and I think this is a better way to do things, you could potentially be executed. Just questioning the regime is enough to have you put away or put down. In this country, in the UK, you can say what you like about the Queen, and the monarchy, you can say what you like about politics, you can say what you like about politicians, and everybody else that is involved and isn't involved. You can even, like, take a picture of people that are very high class and high up, meaning poses. There was one recently, a tabloid article where a member of the royal family was caught photographed topless. There's another picture of a member of the royal family caught in a very controversial situation where he was naked in Vegas. If you were even to chat to someone about something like that, or make a joke there in a country where freedom of speech doesn't exist, you could be in a lot of trouble. I remember there was a case in Berlin before the wall was torn down, that someone said a joke about the leader at the time, said hello to the sun said hello back. Then later on he said hello to the sun said hello back. Then later on he said hello to the sun said, I'm not speaking to you, I'm now setting in the east, not the west. And that man was imprisoned for it, because it was considered a joke against the man in power, saying that the sun wouldn't bow down to him. Again, I can't recite exactly the case word for word, and I don't have a reference for that. All I know is that situations like that have happened, and that's an example of it happening. This cleric, this preacher, was deemed to promote unacceptable behaviours, and newspapers portrayed him as a preacher of hate and a supporter of extreme Islam. My attitude is, anyone who preaches extremes or extremism in the sense of any religion should be prevented from spreading that, because freedom of speech should not allow freedom to hate. It should not allow freedom to belittle and manipulate, and there are some things that well, some areas where freedom should not be allowed. We do not have a freedom to steal. We do not have a freedom to murder. So why do we have a freedom to hate and to preach hate? There will always be people that use arguments for one as they do the other. And although this man may state that he preaches for more of the peaceful forms of Islam, as I said in previous videos, one person's interpretation of a single quote can be completely different to another. If he says a good Muslim will follow the teachings of Muhammad, someone may say, well, this line here says that Muhammad took the heads off of an infidel, and you lot are infidels because you wear jeans and t-shirts and you aren't followers of Islam. He may preach for the positive, others twist it into the negative, and he may fuel these fires of hate. So I believe, on those grounds, that there is a very good reason to prevent him, but it shouldn't just be this man, it should be anyone who promotes extremism, who sympathises with terrorists and others that want to inflict nothing but hurt and hatred on others. I am just going by this article and the message this article relates. It is on the UK Human Rights blog, and I will include the link in the description as I tend to do. And my argument here isn't against him personally. I haven't read his speeches and his teachings. I don't know who this specific man is. I am speaking from the article itself and the message the article brings out. And I'm also branching off using this article as the inspiration for this video, rather than inspiring this video and using this video to direct straight back to the article. The reason I include the articles on these videos is so that you yourself can read it and make your own opinions, so you can come back and discuss it, which is also another thing. The fact that we are able to openly discuss this. I have my views, other people have different views. Yet just the other day I spoke to a devout Christian about misinterpretations of the Bible. The fact that we have a freedom of speech to discuss it maturely as adults who want nothing more than to learn and to understand one another, to live in a world of peace, is something that radicals refuse to accept and allow. This man, he may preach for the peace of Islam to peaceful Muslims and try to turn corrupt Muslims and those that want nothing more than to hate. Can you give me just a minute, because I'm almost done? Okay. He may try to say, don't be an evil person, look at the positives of Islam and move more towards that angle as opposed to the more radical side, but that could very well fuel people into taking it the other way around. And as a result, I think it is a positive step to prevent that from being allowed to happen.